asked Florio for the Zoom. He said 7:20 was too early to put on his toupee.
No way.
Yeah. You couldn't tell that was a toupee?
I thought it was great hair.
No.
Oh,
He
man.
went to the Marv Albert. No, it's great hair. It's great hair, right, Mike?
You know, that was an off-the-record conversation. You want me to share all of the texts that you send me?
Wow.
No, I'm sorry. I retracted. Dump that, Peyton. We got an 8-second delay, Mike.
Wow.
I offered to do it. You know, I was just kidding. My wife gets upset when I joke about having a toupee. And frankly, my real hair, like the older I get, the faster it grows. And there's more and more gray in there now, so it's getting unruly and wiry. I'm going to end up looking like Albert Einstein before too long.
RJ is just sitting here grinding his teeth that you said the older you get, the more it grows.
Yeah.
The rest of my show is bald in here, except for
like
me.
A chia pet.
Yeah. We got collusion and lawsuits everywhere. We got NFL, NFLPA, and then I see on the website ProFootballTalk.com, Jerry Jones has to pay $1.5 million. Which collusion should we start with?
Well, and it's not Jerry that has to pay it. It's Legends Hospitality, which he co-founded some 17 years ago with the Yankees. He still owns a stake in it. Sixth Street Partners bought the majority interest. They're a private equity fund 4 years ago. But it's an example of what the Department of Justice Antitrust Division can do if a group of companies that may or may not be violating the antitrust laws lands on the radar screen. In this collusion case that came to light now 16 days ago with the 61-page ruling that Pablo Torre unearthed, he and I had a friendly competition as to which one could get it first, and he did, and I'm glad he did because it really sheds a light on how the NFL does business. The NFL could end up on the DOJ's radar screen. The NFL could be investigated for all forms of antitrust and collusion. So the Jerry Jones thing is just an example, a very tangible example of what happens if the government decides to sink its teeth into a situation like this. And the NFL may have some situations that the Department of Justice may want to take a look at.
Break down for us in very simple terms, Shan and RJ terms. You know how simple that needs to be, because I feel like I want to be outraged over the NFL collusion story. I just need to make sure I'm understanding it fully on who conspired, who's guilty, and how they can be punished, and if they're going to be punished. Because the regular NFL fan, number one, do they care? You can judge that by traffic on your website, I'm sure. And number two, is the NFL just going to continue to be untouchable?
Here's the breakdown, and I'll make it as simple as possible. It goes all the way back to 2011. That was the first time the NFLPA tried to get fully guaranteed contracts for all players through the collective bargaining that happens at the high level between the union and the league. They tried in 2011. They didn't get it. They tried again in 2020. They didn't get fully guaranteed contracts for all players. 2 years later, the Browns decided to give Deshaun Watson a 5-year fully guaranteed deal. That was in March of 2022. And that, I believe, based upon everything that's in the 61-page ruling, it set off a fire alarm at 345 Park Avenue. And it prompted the league, in advance of a league annual meeting happening just a couple of weeks after the Watson deal was signed, to plan to tell the owners, hey, you got to watch it with the fully guaranteed contracts. And I think the league didn't want to lose on a piecemeal basis what it had been able to keep through collective bargaining. We've managed to fight off fully guaranteed contracts when the union tries to get them for all players. Let's not start giving these things out one by one to the players. We're going to lose indirectly the thing that we've managed to keep through collective bargaining.
Yep.
So the collusion grievance resulted in a ruling that the NFL's management council, with the blessing of the commissioner, urged teams to collude when it comes to guaranteed contracts. That's huge. That's massive. Even though the arbitrator declined to go the rest of the way and find evidence of actual collusion, and I think the arbitrator just chose to ignore or explain away evidence of actual collusion, that ruling that the NFL and the management council, with the blessing of the commissioner, said to the teams, do this, collude, that's huge. And the fact that the NFLPA took that ruling and stuck it in a drawer and hid it for months, that's inexcusable.
Why would they want? That's what we were trying to figure out last hour. Why would the NFLPA want to hurt the players getting guaranteed deals?
Well, it makes no sense. And this thing could have been used in this adversarial relationship with the league in a bunch of different ways. A PR campaign, take it to the DOJ's antitrust division, demand that the commissioner resign, put pressure on the league. You're supposed to be fighting with the league all the time. And one of the theories is Lloyd Howell, the current executive director, has sold himself as a guy who knows how to get deals done without fighting. This collusion grievance is a leftover from his predecessor's tenure. D. Smith was a litigator. He was a fighter. He was an assistant U.S. attorney. He's been a prosecutor. He fought the NFL. And the argument is these lawsuits cost too much money. And the report from ESPN yesterday was that Lloyd Howell painted this thing as a loss, not a partial win, that had some mileage to it, to the NFLPA executive committee, and he blamed D. Smith for wasting a bunch of money by pursuing the thing. So the thinking is it was downplayed because it advances this idea that Lloyd is the compromise choice who knows how to get things done and who isn't going to have all of these fights that he launches that cost a lot of money. Now, beyond that, and the report that came out this morning that Lloyd Howell has a side hustle with the Carlyle Group, part-time consultant, a private equity fund that's been approved to buy minority shares of NFL teams. You start wondering what the hell's really going on here. And I joked when he got hired that he was a Manchurian candidate. Hell, I don't know that it's a joke anymore. I don't know what's going on, but I think the NFLPA player leadership needs to wake up and look into this situation because they may need to get themselves a new executive director.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. We had a former Major League Baseball player, Mike Bassick, in our midday show for a long time, and he said it's not even close, that the NFL has the worst players association. I'm sure you don't have the intimate details of every other league and the way they go about it, but do you think that's a fair statement, Mike, that the NFLPA is pretty weak and has gotten beaten down for decades?
Well, here's the problem. And this goes back to the strike in 1987 that held together for a few weeks, and then players started to cross the picket lines. And then in 2011, the lockout. The lockout ended just as it was time for players to miss game checks when the preseason was getting started. NFL players have short careers. NFL players want to play football. NFL players want to get paid to play football. They need the money that comes from playing football. NFL owners have enough money to shut the sport down for a year. When the nuclear option in collective bargaining of a work stoppage, when one side will do it and one side won't, that creates an imbalance. And there's an apathy that the NFL players have shown. They're not interested. They're not engaged because at the end of the day, they're going to take the best deal and they're going to play football. Don't drag me down with details because at the end of the day, we're doing the best deal. And I think the league has weaponized that apathy against the players for years. And I think that over the past couple of years, the way that Lloyd Howell was selected with his top secret process, there was no transparency. There was just a lot of weird things that happened. I feel like NFLPA leadership has been weaponizing the apathy against the players as well. And the challenge for the players is to wake up and take charge of their union. They're never going to have a chance to fight the NFL if they can't take control of their union and ensure that the people who are in charge of the union are willing to fight the NFL.
Mike, we've always said they should go on strike week 17. They get their whole year of game checks, and then the owners lose what's most important to them, which is playoff game checks, playoff gates, because they don't have to share as much of that with the players. Is that something they would ever consider doing, or do they care too much about the playoffs? They're too selfish with that?
Well, okay, here's how we play that out. Because we're in an era now when the collective bargaining agreement expires. There's two ways it can go. The players can operate without a contract and go on strike whenever they choose to go on strike, which under your suggestion, and it would be a good one, you go on strike at the end of the regular season and you leave the owners high and dry when the postseason rolls around. Before we even get to that point, though, the owners have to not lock the players out. What they did in 2011 was they locked the players out until the players said uncle and took the best deal that was on the table in August of 2011. In 2020, you know, it was a close vote on whether or not to approve the CBA that would have had 17, that moved to 17 regular season games and so, yada, yada. Hey, if the CBA would have expired, the owners would have locked him out. And the owners very well might have shut down the NFL for all of the 2020 season because of the pandemic, and they would have had a hard time coming up with a good deal. So the owners, I think, long before the players would ever have a chance to strike in Week 17, the owners will lock the players out and say, here's your best deal. And the commissioner said some things back in May that made me think they're plotting something that's going to change the way the money gets divided. Because right now it's 50-50. As that number gets bigger and bigger, 50-50 is a lot to give the players. We can pay them less than 50-50 of this unlimited billions that we're getting every year. I think that the apathy is going to be further weaponized against the players the next time around. And that's why it's critical the players have someone in place who will devote his or her life to fighting the league at every turn with no conflict of interest, with no side job, with nothing but an unrelenting passion and desire to get the best deal possible for the players and get the players into the mindset that they need to be in, that sometimes you got to stand up and you got to fight. Even if you may have to give up a year of your NFL career, you've got to be willing to fight. And that's not an easy thing to do because that apathy is baked in 38 years now and counting.
Football Night in America, ProFootballTalk.com, book author, which we're going to get to here in a minute, Mike Florio on Shan and RJ 105.3 The Fan.
You better get to it or I'll go on strike.
Why aren't you working? Well, what's up with your regular hours? It sounds like you've already gone on strike.
Well, no, trust me. We have a hiatus every year in the slow time.
Yeah.
It begins middle of June and lasts until right about the time training camp opens. This week it's 6 weeks, or this year it's 6 weeks, excuse me. The problem is I do a podcast every day that's 45 minutes long that's just me. So 2 hours with Chris Sims or 1 hour roughly just me, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I'm still working every day. And the slow time's always busier.
Yeah.
It never slow. There is no slow time.
Yeah.
This collusion thing has consumed my life for the last 2.5 weeks. So trust me, I'm not on strike. And
Mike,
I'm not getting paid extra for working on vacation. Maybe I need to go on strike with NBC.
Mike, are you finding that readers care about it?
They care about it more than I thought they would. What was disappointing was that the usual suspects who cover the NFL buried their heads in the sand because they didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
Because they know nothing good is going to come of it for them. And I understand it. That idea that I got a mortgage to pay, I got mouth to feed, that goes a long way toward justifying a lot of things that, in theory, you would prefer people not do. I was very encouraged by the reporting yesterday and today from Don Van Natta Jr. and Kalen Kaler of ESPN. You know, and that's the thing. When you have a place like ESPN, you have certain reporters who don't rely on that relationship with the teams, relationship with the league, relationship with the union. Because the thing that's been very difficult is to get agents to speak out, to get players to say anything. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid of reprisals and repercussions. And it's unfortunate. It's sad. And I'm just fortunate and grateful that I'm in a position where I built my platform, I own my platform, and I don't have to worry about that crap. So it's good to see others who are in a position where they're confident enough that they don't have to worry about the reprisals and they can advance this story, because this is one of those things that I think the deeper you go, the uglier it is. And I think that where we are right now, there's going to be some significant ramifications, and people do care about this more than I thought they would, and that part of it's refreshing.
Mike, Kavante Turpin, 97 and a 70 with a gun and a couple of ounces of marijuana. I'm a proponent of I only break one law at a time. What is the NFL going to do here? What is their take on this?
Well, the substance abuse policy essentially decriminalized marijuana 5 years ago. You have to really try to get suspended for any type of marijuana, positive test, violation of possession, whatever. So if it was DUI, he'd have a problem. There was DeMarcus Robinson pleaded no contest recently to a DUI charge. He's going to get suspended 3 games, period. They don't mess around with DUI. With marijuana, they don't care anymore. You have to basically defy the testing protocol and the treatment program to get yourself suspended. The weapons thing, I'd have to go back and research that again, which is a lawyer's way of saying I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head what the potential consequences would be under the weapons policy, but my vague recollection is there's plenty of weapons incidents, not plenty, but they happen from time to time. I don't remember a lot of suspensions over weapons incidents. I think it's easier to navigate your way around a suspension through what you plead to and how you resolve the criminal charges than it is for a DUI. For a DUI, there's no way around it. You plead guilty to anything related to that alcohol charge, you're getting suspended.
The other day, we went through your NFC contenders list from ProFootballTalk.com, and it had the Eagles, Lions, Rams, San Fran, the Commanders, maybe the Bucks, maybe the Vikings, and then the list just ended. Where are the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, the question came up, what do I think of a possible Bills-Rams Super Bowl? And that's when I addressed the idea that in any given year, there are 10 or 12 teams that have a realistic chance of winning the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean the other teams have no chance. I made the mistake of saying in 2021 the Bengals have no chance to make the playoffs, and they made it to the Super Bowl. In 2023, the Texans have no chance to make the playoffs. They made it to the final eight. Teams that aren't on that radar screen when the season begins can play their way into it. But look at where we are right now. Pete Rozelle hated the 70s because there was no parity, and we thought we got to a point where there's true parity and everyone has a chance. And now you've got teams that have cracked the code and they have franchise quarterbacks, and they're always in the mix. And there's other teams that can't get into the mix. So I want some variety. I'd like to see the Cowboys get back to the NFC Championship for the first time since 1995. I mean, it's always the same teams now. It's the Chiefs. The Chiefs. Since Patrick Mahomes became the starter in 2018, the worst the Chiefs have done is lose in overtime in the AFC Championship.
Oh,
that's the floor. So, I'd like to see it get mixed up. I'd like the Ravens to get to a Super Bowl. I'd like the Bills to get to a Super Bowl. I'd like to see the Steelers, shock the AFC and climb to the top of the mountain, which I don't think they'll do. I'd like to see the Cowboys have it all fall together. And I think, I think this George Pickens thing could work out. I'm fascinated by that because everything Dak Prescott said about him is accurate. He's open when he's not open, and he gets open a lot. The Steelers just didn't use him properly. If the Cowboys use him properly, that offense could be better, the Cowboys could be better, and who knows how it's going to play out. But as of right now, is it stunning to think that the Cowboys aren't in the same class as the Eagles, the Commanders, the Lions, the 49ers, and the Rams? Is that really a hot take?
No, it's not a hot take, unfortunately. Right. Are the Commanders laying the groundwork for a return to the Redskins?
And, I say this without regard to whether they should have changed their name. I believe they should. This is without regard to whether they should change back. And you've got the president saying basically they never should have changed and they should change back. I'm just looking at what they're doing. And they are just dancing around the old name and the old logo. Those uniforms they came out with yesterday, first of all, they drop a video with highlights from the 80s with the old logo visible. When they've been shying away from showing the old logo ever on social media, they went in with both feet yesterday. And every image they show of these throwback uniforms, they have the helmet at an angle where you can't see the logo on the side, and it looks like the old uniforms. And when you've got the president saying you never should have changed your name, and they're possibly going to have to go to the president to get him to get D.C. Council to approve the investment in the stadium they want to build, hey, if he says, I want you to go back to your old name, and deep down they kind of want to go back to their old name, I mean, I can't rule out them going back to their old name. Hey, Dan Snyder said he'd never change the name. He said that in 2013, and 7 years later he did.
Yeah.
Josh Harris has said they're not going back to the old name. I mean, I feel like they're flirting with it, they're dancing around it, and they're laying the foundation to do it if the dominoes fall in a way that they need to do it to get the president to push for this stadium in D.C. on the timetable they want. And I think if they have to do it, maybe at some level they'll be happy they did have to do it.
Mike Florio celebrating 25 years at Pro Football Talk NFLPA.com. I was really interested in reading the recap of how it started, how it almost fell apart, and how it's been going all the way up to football night in America. And in that, I thought that this father of mine and, writing on the side thing was just like a little minor hobby. And it's sounding like this is something that could be major with the latest thing that you also have coming out. So talk about 25 years and explain to our audience what is the Big Shield.
Hey, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. First of all, it's 25 years of me stumbling into the business. The silver anniversary of PFT is coming up November 1, 2026. So I'm going to milk this 25-year thing as many times as I possibly can. This is 25 years of me sending in a writing sample to a website that didn't pay me, but I knew the moment that they hired me that something's going to happen here, even though it took years before I actually, made any real money from it. But 5 years ago, I started screwing around with fiction, and we've done Father of Mine, we've done Son of Mine, On Our Way Home, Christmas/Ghost Story that's out there. But I've got a stack of like 7 other manuscripts because I just keep writing at night when I'm done doing my PFT stuff, and because I've gotten very adept at typing and thinking quickly, I've just been cranking it out. So Big Shield is a cautionary tale on gambling, the mob, and professional football, but not the National Football League. Wink, not officially not. No team names used. NFL not used. Just cities that coincidentally are hosting teams in the fictional professional football league. But I've been very concerned about how a gambling scandal could affect the NFL since the Supreme Court opened the floodgates for state-by-state legalized sports betting. And, instead of waiting for the real story to happen that could hurt the NFL's image and impair fan trust in the integrity of the game, and I already hear, and you guys hear it all the time, it's rigged, it's rigged, it's rigged. It's not rigged. But I'm already hearing it's rigged without a scandal. So I tried to envision the scandal that could happen and put it out there as a warning to the NFL to get its house in order, and as a warning to the players who might be tempted to cash in on the inside information that they have. And that's really the gist of where the scandal comes from. A guy who is turning his access to inside information both before games and during games into money, ties to the mob, can't get out, and it all kind of goes from there.
Wow. Big Shield now available for pre-order. Choppy, that's right down your alley, being the degenerate that you are, and the ebook can be pre-ordered, for the low price of 99 cents.
The ebook would be right at my alley.
Stupid. You know what? I am stupid to sell those for 99 cents.
Yeah.
Because number one, they're objectively good, and number two, you look up what ebooks cost. They're at least like $7, $8, $9 each. It's just stupid that I did that, but I'm trying to encourage reading as something that we enjoy. I remember being in school and they forced us to read books, and I hated it. And when I discovered reading as something that's enjoyable as an adult, it's like, hey, this is pretty good. So for 99 cents, you can discover reading as something enjoyable, assuming you guys can read. I'm not so sure as to one of you, and I'm not going to say which one.
Thank you, Michael. Congratulations on the legendary run, and we'll continue to push the Big Shield on all the socials. Thank you, boss.